What's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets here, previewing the Thursday night football game. My name is Chris Meaney. You can give me a follow on Twitter if you want to. If you don't, all good. At Chris Meaney is the Twitter account there. You're watching on iTunes and Spotify. We greatly appreciate your support. If you could smash the like button, that would do us a solid. Always taking your questions, so always circle back on these videos if you do have any questions at all that you want to ask us here today. So again, at Chris Meaney or here on the YouTube section of the YouTube comment section, I'll always circle back on these videos. So Thursday night football tonight, we have the Vikings and the Rams. The Vikings at 5-1, the Rams at 2-4. Just sound like we're going to get some guys back here. Cooper Kupp expected back today. There's some reports that Puka Nacua could be back. I'm not sure if I'm fully buying that report from Tom Pelissero, but it's possible that he does play. I would say he's more limited than Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, I have roughly wide receiver 15. I think if you have him, you're playing him unless you're in a two wide receiver league. And let's say you have somebody, let's take a look at the rankings. You have somebody like, Debo is in question. I would probably wait it out for Debo, but if you were a Debo owner and you just didn't want to wait it out, you want to put Puka there, wouldn't fight you on that. Still like Jaden Reed against the Jags, even though there's been some inconsistencies there, but there's not a lot of guys like maybe T. Higgins against the Eagles, Stephon Diggs against Indy. I would play Neighbors, even in a tough spot, but Cooper Kupp, you waited this long, you know that the ceiling is there. I would roll him out. Puka, if he is active, would probably fall into the 40s for me. I would play him definitely over Deontay Johnson. I'd play him over like Jacoby Myers, Calvin Ridley, Ladd McConkey, Khalil Shakir. I'm playing Romeo Doubs over him. I'm playing Darnell Mooney over him. I'm playing, Keenan Allen, Chris Olave if he suits up. I would consider him maybe over Marvin Harrison Jr., a matchup against the Dolphins. They've just been so stout against wide receivers, allowing the fewest passing yards and fewest passing touchdowns and only 2 wide receiver touchdowns and just the third fewest points overall. And Kyler and Marv don't seem to be on the same page. So a little bit of a riskier play if Puka does play. I'm really surprised to see his receiving yard prop higher than Cooper Kupp. I'm not a big unders guy, but the under Puka Nacua's 73 receiving yards is something that I would certainly consider when Cooper Kupp's at 68. So maybe they're just really going all in to win tonight with the Rams. This is a must-win situation. There's trade rumors around Cooper Kupp, and they probably should move on from him. They probably should trade him, if we're being honest about their situation moving forward. And, if they lose tonight, maybe that's it. If they're down in the second half and Kupp is on the sidelines and they're protecting him from an injury and kind of treating him, like bubble wrap kind of deal, wrapping him up to make sure that he doesn't get hurt, then it would be very, very telling. Of course, they're not going to move on from Puka Nacua or Kyron Williams, and some reports of Matthew Stafford getting traded as well. But we'll see how this does play out. I think the Vikings are going to win tonight. They've moved to 2.5 favorites. There were 3. I've already bet them at -118 to win by cover the 2.5. They're the better team. Right. They went toe to toe with the Lions last week. They had a lead late in that ball game. They lead the NFL in interceptions. They're among the leaders in sacks. DVOA, they are first overall in total defense. They're number 1 against the pass and they're number 1 against the run. I get it, Packers Nation, who came at me about the Jordan Love comment of how, they made him look silly. He still threw 3 picks. He had some garbage time stuff at the end of the game. He made Purdy look silly. He made CJ Stroud look silly. And that's Brian Flores making those quarterbacks look silly. He's a heck of a defensive coordinator. We're seeing that firsthand. So they're first in DVOA against the run, against the pass, and total DVOA. And really, it's all about adjusted yards, DVOA. If you're unfamiliar, it calculates the team's success based on down and distance of each play during the season. A third down is different. 3rd and 4th is different than 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 9. And it also calculates how much more or less successful each team is compared to league average in certain situations and really baking in the competition that they've played. For example, the Saints balling out in the first 2 weeks, did it against the Cowboys, who we know their defense is not playing good this season, and Carolina. If it was against the Broncos or against the Vikings where they balled out, they would grade it a lot higher than balling out against those two other mediocre defensive squads, which they did earlier in the season. But back to this game tonight, the total of 48.5. I just think the Vikings are the better team. I think their defense is better. I don't think the Rams defense is good at all. They can't stop the run. They've given up big plays through the air. They rank 22nd or 26th in total DVOA. So yes, on the road, getting some guys back. And I think that's part of it. If there was no Cooper Kupp, clearly, the spread would be different. But I'm on the Vikings, taking my own pool -2.5, -3, whatever it finishes on. Money line stuff if you wanted to just drink a little bit of the juice instead of taking the spread. And I talked about that on the NFL betting show. I think that the Dolphins probably cruise past Arizona, but I've been burned too many times before by 3.5. So if I can get something at 2.5, I'm going to take a little bit more juice. I don't mind doing that to get the win. I've been, like I said, last second field goal. You feel like the process is right. You're on this team to win the football game. And then, they don't cover the 3.5 and they just win on the last second field goal. For tonight, using the prop shop parlay calculator, two tools that are free over at FTN Fantasy, get the best possible number. You can just take Minnesota on the money line -145 at Caesars if you wanted to go that route. Again, I think they're the better team defensively. And offensively, they've been playing pretty good too. Sam Darnold's been efficient, a brutal first half against the Lions, a better second half. Kevin O'Connell's a good play caller. Rams are not good defensively. So here we go with some props. My favorite one is Aaron Jones. I put this in last night, over 94.5 rushing and receiving yards. This number has jumped up to 97.5. I wanted to share the 94.5. It's part of being the perks of being with us at FTN Fantasy. We put that bet in right away. It's in the Discord, put it in the tracker. The line moves. I would love to come in here earlier and share this stuff with you. It's just, unfortunately, in the month of October, all the sports are happening. Dangle Betselli, NFL betting show, nothing that you guys care about. But if you're subbed with us, you get that number right away. I'll shout out the prop shop again. You can see the difference in books. I mentioned the yard number here. It's 69.5 rushing yards. I think there's an edge in the rushing and receiving combined. I think there's both. You can ladder him up to 100 if you wanted to. I think that is certainly in play as well. A shout out to promo code FTN Hoops to save yourself some cash if you want to be part of the family. All the picks across all sports, Discord. Did I just say Discord? Discord, tools, projections, betting models. It's all there for you. Picks across all sports from everybody. Jones has had at least 93 rushing yards in 4 of his 5 games. He struggled in week 2 against the Niners. That's when they were healthy and they had a stout defense. Still think that they have some pieces, obviously. And then week 5, he left early with a hip injury. He's been battling through a hamstring injury. He's off the injury report. He's good to go. But 93 yards on 14 carries against a stout run defense in the Lions last week. He had another 23 yards through the air. The reason I'm doing rushing and receiving is because, one, he's averaging the second most rushing yards he's ever averaged. You go back to 2020 with the Packers, where he averaged, I think, 78. I think he's around 73 right now. So he's essentially having a career season. It's a very small sample size, but he is playing really good football. And then it's the receiving, that 31.7 receiving yards per game. That's a career high for him. Think about all those years with the Packers where he's like 50 plus catches and 49 plus. I think it was like 4 years in a row with like 44 plus and a couple in the 50s. And it was like Aaron Rodgers chucking to him. And he was a big player in the receiving game and he was scoring touchdowns. But he's having a career series. It's time to take notice of this. 31.7 receiving yards, 9.4 yards per catch is the second highest mark of his career, going back to 2019, his highest. And then 9.4 yards after the catch is his best number. So when you look at last week, what the Rams did against Alexander Mattison, starting to get a little bit of buzz in the fantasy community. Alexander Mattison and the Raiders have been the worst rushing team in football all year long. No first downs, and Madison had 92 rushing yards against the Rams last week. 92 rushing yards, and he had 31 receiving yards. So over 94.5. It's 97.5. I'm fine with it over. Let's get in now because this could jump up to 100, but I'm still fine with it. And if it gets over 100, maybe you just take the rushing yard number at 69. Again, he's had at least 93 rushing yards in 4 games this season, and Madison had 92. So I think the offense is going to run through Aaron Jones here tonight against the Rams. And if the Rams are able to score some points, then, we'll get some love for Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. TJ Hawkinson's the other guy that I meant to mention. We just had Alec Lewis on, who covers the Vikings for The Athletic. We had him on the SiriusXM show myself and Jake Seeley, Monday to Friday from 1 to 3 Eastern on channel 87, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. You can go back and listen to that interview if you want on all demand. To search FTN Fantasy if you have the Sirius XM app. He said he didn't think that TJ Hawkinson was going to play, and that if he did, he would be extremely limited to the point where maybe he's only playing in the red zone. So he's interesting, maybe for like a touchdown prop. I think he's plus 205, but I think if you have TJ Hawkinson, it's all about context. Of course, you've been waiting for him. The tight end position is gross, but Bowers, Kittle, McBride, Kelsey, Njoku, Ingram, Kraft, Otten, Ferguson, Pitts, Andrews. These are all guys that would play over Hawkinson. And I would include Hunter Henry in there as well. I know it's against the Jets, but the past couple weeks have been really good. So it's his first game back. We know that his ceiling is high. I think it's top 5 potential at the tight end position. He had 90 plus grabs last year. I know it's not with Kirk, but he's a really good player, clearly. And I understand you may want to play him, but like Cade Otton and David Njoku are top 5 tight ends for me. They're in the circle of trust. With the injuries in Tampa, Cade Otton is going to be the go-to guy there. And then with Cooper gone, David Njoku is going to be the go-to guy there in Cleveland with Jameis Winston under center. So I think that you can get by risking it out with, Kupp for sure and Nakua to an extent. The rankings will be updated when we hear news, but he'll be in the 40s. Kupp is a play. And TJ Hawkinson, I think, depending on your situation, I would probably play Sam Laporta over him. And I'm sour on Sam Laporta and I'm sour on Kincaid. But with no Jameson Williams, just give me the tight end on arguably the best offense in football. I'd be willing to play Sam Laporta. Moving forward, like Cade Otton and Njoku and TJ Hawkinson are better options than Sam Laporta. It's just these guys have been busts. And it's the tight end position. But you can treat it like Andrews. You hope that he scores touchdowns on a good offensive squad. You score a touchdown, you're finishing as a top 5 tight end anyways. But I would be a little hesitant to roll out TJ Hawkinson tonight. We'll see if he is active. So Aaron Jones' favorite prop, and I'm drinking this up. I'm buying the bait, the dip, whatever the cool kids say. 67.5 receiving yards. I don't care if he's limited or not. I don't think they're showcasing him, but there's a possibility maybe he balls out. And like I said earlier, if the team is not playing well, they decide they'll sit him in the second half, and then it'll be very telling on how they feel about him in the future in LA. But 67.5 receiving yards, and I get it. It's a tough defense, but they've given up some plays in the secondary. They're tough to run on. They've given up some plays in the secondary. So Cooper Kupp over 67.7 or 67.5 receiving. I'm going to take this all day, all time, no matter the matchup, no matter how limited he is. This is what I'll do. Proceed with caution, but I'm betting it myself, and I wouldn't just give it to you guys just for the sake of it. I'm trying to give you guys some winners here. So Aaron Jones over rushing and receiving, Cooper Kupp next. And again, like I said, pretty surprised to see Puka Nacua, who is very questionable to play at like 73 receiving yards, and Cooper Kupp at 67. I find that very, very odd. Maybe they know something that we don't. They build big buildings in Vegas for a reason. It's hard to go against them. I would lean with the under on Puka and the over on Cooper. Kyron Williams over 17.5 rushing attempts. I just mentioned that this is a tough matchup for him. The Vikings are really good on the ground. They're fantastic. I have a lean to the under on the rushing yards, but he's going to continue to get his touches. That's what he does. And Kyron Williams, the last couple of weeks, 21 attempts for 76, 22 for 102, 19 for 94, 24 for 89. The off week against Arizona, 12 for 25, but before that, 18 for 50. So a tough defense against the Lions, only had 50 yards, still racked up 18 carries. It was 2.8 yards per pop. He's had a rushing touchdown in every single game. He's got 8 so far on the ground and 9 total. He's got a couple games with 2 rushing touchdowns. And you want to go back to last year, before he overtook this backfield, 20 attempts, 22 attempts, 27, 25, 21, 16 against Arizona. I don't know what it is against Arizona. He had 143 yards, so not needed in the blow win as part of it. 20 before that. And then early on in the season when he was, just kind of getting in there and they traded Cam Akers 15, 14, 10, then 25. Of course, then the injury happened, missed a little bit of time. But when he came back, it was, 21, 25, 27, 22, 20. And then this year, the attempts as well, 21, 22, 19, 24 last 4 games. So he has cruised past this number in, I don't remember how many games I just rounded. It's got to be 8 or 9. So over 17.5 rushing attempts at minus 125. I don't think that they get away from it. I think that they still want to run the football. If they get behind in the game, then maybe, but I'm going to take that Matthew Stafford for an interception. Don't give too many interception props. Stafford's good for a couple. The Vikings lead the NFL in picks. They can get pressure. Stafford tends to throw interceptions. So I'm taking the over -102 on that one. I think there's an edge on Tutu Atwell at over 32.5 receiving yards. And this number could drop down a little bit when we hear the status of Puka. If he is in, then that one could drop down. But if he is out, it could bump up to 35, 36. I'm going to like it regardless. I'm thinking that Puka doesn't play, but if he does, he's extremely limited. For Tutu Atwell, he's that big threat guy in the offense. He's the guy with the higher average depth of target down the field. It just takes a couple grabs to get to this number. And if you look, of course, this is without the alphas, but 48, 93, 82, 58, 51. We've seen him show up before last year towards the end of the year. With the alphas on in the wide receiver room and playing. So I think there's an edge here. As much as I'm talking about Kyron getting the attempts, I think they will have to throw the football at some point here. So over 32.5 receiving yards. And I think it helps him, with Cup and everybody else there and healthy. There's not as much attention on him, but he's been decent in fantasy and 32.5. I mean, his I think the over under reception prop is like 17.5. So it's like half of that essentially. So that's just goes to show the big playability. Here's a fun one. Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp, 100 receiving yards each at +900 over at Bet365. Gave this one to the subs. Listen, you take this last year without hesitation. This year, Justin Jefferson's been solid. There haven't been a lot of 100-yard games. Darnold's done his part, but the matchup is fantastic. And for Cooper Kupp, we know that he can do this, right? We know that he can get 100 yards. So this is a long shot bet, maybe 0.25 units. The best place is 365. I think FanDuel's hanging around +650. So Jefferson and Cooper Kupp over 100 receiving yards each. So pretty short card for me. Aaron Jones is my guy over rushing and receiving, and I like the rushing. I may bet the rushing as well. I'm not much of a psycho. Cooper Kupp at over 67.5 receiving yards. Kyron Williams over 17.5 rushing attempts against Stafford for an interception, and Tutu Atwell over 32.5. I would say the 2-2-1's a little bit more likely. Maybe we could put Stafford at the end of the 5, and of course this one here as well in JJ and Kupp. My touchdowns are really chalky. Last week's shout out, we did have Andrews and Evans pretty close to Kate Otten, Marv, no chance, and Vidal did get a couple looks inside the red zone. He's a sneaky guy, maybe to take his touchdown props. He did get a couple red zone looks there when the Chargers got in, but they don't really live inside the red zone. Tonight, very chalky. Aaron Jones, I think, scores a touchdown at -110, and Kyron scores one every week. So if you wanted to do a 2-leg, maybe parlay with Jones and Kyron, like Kyron, again, is scoring one every single week. He's the guy that has owned all of the touches inside the red zone and at the goal line. There's no threat of Blake Corum. Watch Corum have 3 touchdowns or something silly, but there hasn't been. In fact, he's had 100% of all of the goal line opportunities has gone to Kyron Williams. He's -175. You can't bet that as a single, but maybe you can put the 2 in or take Jones as a single and leave Kyron alone, or you can do a 2-leg parlay. I also think Justin Jefferson finds the end zone tonight at -115. Again, and not great odds. Like Jalen Naylor would be the long shot, or Addison get better numbers, or TJ Hawkinson, who's on the list at +205. I don't even really love that play, but I think there's good value in just hearing Alec, who covers the Vikings for The Athletic, talk about how if he is active, they plan on using him the most inside the red zone. So there could be like a player or two drawn up for him, and that's why that's appealing. And Cooper Kupp at +140. Most times we get him at -110, -125. We know the connection that him and Matthew Stafford have at +140. It could be a vintage Kupp Stafford game. It could be the last time these guys are playing together. All of that stuff comes into the fold here. And then I have the long shot as the Vikings defense at +475. I don't even know how many defensive touchdowns they have off the top of my head. I know they had one last week. I just know that they've been ball hawks, man. They've been after it defensively. I already talked about some of the defensive numbers. They have 3 defensive touchdowns. They have a block kick. They have 3 fumble recoveries. They have 11 picks, which leads the NFL. They have 24 sacks. Which is 3rd in the NFL behind the New York Giants and the Denver Broncos. So this defense is vicious, man. They can get after you. And like I said, they've made some quarterbacks look silly. And Stafford is a guy that throws some picks. I didn't even know how many picks he has this year. He's got 4 picks. He's got 3 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Something about a primetime interception with Matthew Stafford as well. You know, 11 interceptions last year is not as high as I thought. He had the 17 in his first year with the Rams, but he was also second in touchdowns with 41 that year. But I'm going to go with the pick and this Vikings defense continuing to make some noise. So there you have it. Those are the picks on the Vikings. I'd put the Vikings in there as one of the better plays tonight on the card as well on the money line. I would probably go Aaron Jones, Vikings, Cup, and then go down the list that way. Good luck, guys. Hopefully the winners are yours. Appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out. Do me a solid, smash the like button if you can. Rate, review, subscribe if you do listen on iTunes and Spotify. And I'll circle back if you have any starters or questions on this channel. But you can reach out at Chris Meaney, Mean Streets, FTN@gmail.com. A lock that'll be with you guys on Friday to answer some of those questions. And maybe if you guys have been following my work, highlight the reasons why I haven't been around. We'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one. Cheers.